Hey, what's ready? Welcome back to News Dose, and I think by this point we all know that Xbox is changing. You know, their next console, by all indication, will be a PC console hybrid that utilizes Windows. But that also kind of begs a very important question. See, on one side, the idea of having an Xbox console that's compatible with PC games, aka stores like Steam, that's really exciting, but if its backend truly is Windows-based, well, what exactly does that mean for your Xbox library and games that aren't available on Windows? Because the truth is, a large portion of their games aren't available on PC. Well, interestingly, we may have gotten our answer, and I'm happy to say that their future just got a little bit more exciting. So stick around and we're going to get into all of that, and also a serious problem that the AAA game industry has. It was just highlighted on full display. First, though, I do want to thank my supporters on Patreon and on YouTube memberships. Thank you just so much for what you do, and you will receive this video through early access. Let's go and get right into things, though, starting off with yet another Switch Online game. Nintendo was apparently very, very busy yesterday. Of course, if you missed my previous video, they announced two Nintendo 64 games, being Rayman 2 and Tonic Trouble. Definitely go check those out come December 17th, but apparently that wasn't quite everything, because later in the day, they also announced Wario World for the Nintendo Gamecube. Now, maybe that's why they kept it separate. Their GameCube lineup is exclusive to the Switch too, so it's going to appeal to different consumers. But either which way, Wario is one of those franchises that I think deserves more love. Of course, the Wario Land games are often highly praised, but Wario World was a bit different in the sense that it brought him into a 3D environment. And we really haven't seen much of that since, and that's probably because it wasn't a super successful game when it originally launched. It's more of one of those cult classics that some people fondly remember, and that's the thing about something like Switch Online. It is much more accessible than buying some of these old GameCube games that are now very expensive. In fact, I actually checked on eBay, and Wario World is currently going anywhere between $80 all the way up to well beyond $100. So I'd say if you want to check it out, and if you're a Switch One Online subscriber, then you can actually play it today. Now, speaking of Nintendo, we also got another update for Metroid Prime 4, but this time over in Japan. The Famitsu chart revealed that it sold 21,415 physical copies for its launch. Now, we don't have any data for the Switch One version because it didn't chart, but just for comparison's sake, that's much less than Metroid Dread, which sold nearly 87,000 copies during the same time frame. And that might not look very good, but I'm also going to point out that it's still higher than Metroid Prime 2 and Metroid Prime Remastered. Now, to be fair, okay, a remaster versus a brand new title can be skewed, but historically, Japan does seem to prefer 2D Metroid games as opposed to the 3D Prime titles. I mean, even the 2D Metroid games aren't exactly massive sellers in Japan. I mean, Metroid's just not very popular there. The best selling entry that's been tracked in Japan to this day is Metroid Fusion. But even with that information, that hasn't stopped people from freaking out about these numbers. The word flop is floating around quite a bit right now, but like I said yesterday, I think that is a bit of an overreaction. Personally, I think people should probably just wait for Nintendo's financial report, which will likely give us a much more rounded reading of what Metroid Prime 4 is selling compared to the rest of the series, because not only will it include its worldwide numbers, places other than Japan where it's just not very popular at, but we're also going to get a more accurate outlook because of its digital units sold as well, which is very important in today's world. Now, personally, I wouldn't be shocked if it still ends up lagging behind Metroid Dread, but even if that happens, hopefully it'll still be successful enough to greenlight more Metroid Prime installments in the future. Oh, and it sounds like Final Fantasy VII Part 3 is progressing extremely well, and it sounds like it could even potentially be in the hands of players a lot sooner than some people expect. I mean, in today's world, gamers have been conditioned to believe that it's normal for AAA games to take 5, 6, 7, or even 8 years of development, but in this case, it might actually be a much shorter development cycle. Now, they've already hinted at that on a few different occasions, but now the director also had this to say in a recent interview. Right now, the new experience the game will offer is almost complete, and we're entering the phase of development where we will flesh it out. As the director, I'd say the game has reached a stage where it's finally starting to match the vision I had for it, and I'm dying to let everyone try it, but we still need to finish it before delivering it, so I ask you to wait just a little longer. We'll be able to share information with you soon. So, I mean, just based on everything that they've said in the past, in addition to this, I'm thinking maybe a 2026 reveal with a 2027 launch could be possible. And if they were to achieve that, that would only be a 3-year development cycle, which is incredibly impressive for modern AAA development. Now, to be completely fair, a lot of that's because they already have assets, characters, and a world in place because all of their work on Rebirth. But that's something that I think developers should maybe pay attention to. We've seen similar things from Insomniac's Spider-Man as one such example. Insomniac was able to cut development time down because of their work on the first game, and I think that's actually a pretty good way of handling a sequel. Regardless, though, a 2026 reveal for the conclusion of the Final Fantasy VII remakes could be in the cards. Now, since we're talking about AAA development, one common theme that I've talked a lot about in the past is really the problem that modern AAA studios have. And there was some news today that really caught me off guard that I feel truly highlights exactly what I've been preaching on this channel for years, that modern AAA games are just far too expensive to make. And that's for a lot of different reasons, including the rise of big open worlds, modern day technology, and also just because development time has gotten out of control. I mean, time is money at the end of the day, but there was a game that released this year that really flipped the industry on its head, and that was none other than Expedition 33. And okay, I think on the surface level, a lot of people will probably look at this game at a glance, and they'll just assume that it's a AAA game because it not only looks outstanding, but it also has incredible design, it has great characters, fantastic writing, and truly one of the most realized worlds that we've seen in gaming possibly ever. I mean, it really is an incredible experience. I can't recommend it enough. But no, this is not a AAA game. It actually instead came from a very small studio of just 30 developers that are very passionate about gaming and the genre that they were building. And that's one thing that bleeds into Expedition 33 compared to a lot of AAA games. I mean, you can definitely tell the difference between a game and a world that was built from passion compared to, let's just say, an open world game that was designed to keep you busy. In fact, one of the developers that worked on this game came from Ubisoft, and he left Ubisoft to work on a game like this because he could let his passion pour out, which is something he could not do over at Ubisoft. That is a difference in design philosophy. And here's the thing. Sandfall Interactive just revealed that their budget was actually less than $10 million. Now, they said in order to achieve that number, they had to choose not to have the game be a true open-world title, which is something that I find to be very interesting. See, for me personally, I've never really fully gotten onto the hype train that is open world. Now, okay, I think some games fit the open world formula very well. Games like GTA, Red Dead Redemption, Spider-Man, The Witcher, Elden Ring, among various others. But I don't think that every game necessarily needs that. I think the more focused, condensed experiences can be better in a lot of situations. And I'm going to use a few examples of that. I mean, look at something like Metroid Prime 4. It didn't need an open section at all, but they just kind of shoehorned it into that game, and it ended up being the most criticized part of Metroid. There's also Mario Kart World, but did its open world actually make the game better than, let's say, Mario Kart 8? Because I don't think so. Really, I'd say that some of its best tracks are the ones that feel more like a classic Mario Kart, as opposed to the straight stretches that was caused because of its open world nature. There's also games like Halo and Gears of War. Both of those feel better without those big empty spaces that they tried to push with some of the recent installments. And even for something like Zelda, which, okay, this might be a little bit more controversial, but for me personally, I prefer the classic Zelda over Breath of the Wild. And I also prefer the classic Metal Gear Solid over Metal Gear Solid 5. So again, these condensed, more focused experiences can be very fruitful. And Expedition 33 has once again proven exactly that. I mean, just $10 million compared to something like, let's say, Spider-Man 2, which reportedly cost north of $200 million. That is a massive, massive difference. And because there is such a huge difference, something like Spider-Man 2 has a lot more risk than something like Expedition 33. Let me know what you all think about this, though. Are you impressed by what Sandfall Interactive pulled off with just a $10 million budget? And what do you think about true open-world games compared to something like they did? All right, now, one more thing before we go, though, because if this one turns out to be true, which I believe there is a reason to believe this, then I think Xbox's future just got a little bit more exciting. Now, I'm not saying that their next console is going to go out and sell 50+ million consoles, because I don't believe that it will. I actually believe it's going to be more on a niche side of things. But what I am saying is that if you are interested in the Xbox brand, then this is actually a really cool story for their future. And that is in regards to their backwards compatibility program. See, ever since Phil Spencer took the reins over at Xbox, they have put a major emphasis on backwards compatibility. However, because their newfound direction seems to be going more towards PC, which not only includes their next console, but it also includes things like the ROG Xbox Ally and their current Windows PCs. So there has been a question about their library, more specifically when it comes to their OG Xbox games and Xbox 360 titles. To this day, neither of which runs on PC. But that might soon change. Yeah, this comes from Nate the Hate over on Resetera, where he said, "There exists a hope to make legacy Xbox OG and Xbox 360 games backwards compatible on ROG and Windows. Whether they succeed is the unknown, but there is an effort being made. The other unknown would be how extensive will the initiative be in offerings. Will it be what we currently have on Series, or will backwards compatibility expand to add more titles across the Xbox ecosystem?" And that would be a massive development if they were to pull it off. And like I said, there is a reason to believe this rumor. For one, Nate the Hate has proven to be a reliable leaker in the past. But hey, even if you don't believe him, well, Xbox back in June actually mentioned that the next generation Xbox would maintain compatibility with your existing library of Xbox games, which in theory would include Xbox 360 and OG Xbox titles as well. So, I mean, this very much could be something that they're working on in the background, in part because their next generation looks to combine their consoles with PC. You know, the idea that everything is an Xbox can only go as far as its library, and in order to fully sell that idea to fans, then PC must truly become an Xbox, and it kind of seems like that's what they're trying to achieve. Let me know what you think, though. If they pull this off, do you think that that makes Xbox's future a little bit more exciting? Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode. But until next time, make sure to subscribe, ring that bell, and peace out.